Your racing mind isn't a disorder. It's not anxiety. It's not stress. It's actually something way simpler. You're making yourself miserable with sentences. Literally just sentences in your head. I know that sounds crazy, but stick with me for the next 25 minutes, and I'll prove it to you. More importantly, I'll show you how to change those sentences and finally get some peace. Look, I'm not going to waste your time with theory and psychobabble. By the time you finish watching this, you're going to understand exactly why your mind races, why you can't let things go, and why you replay the same worries over and over. More importantly, you're going to learn the exact technique I've used with over 10,000 people to quiet that mental noise. Here's what most people get wrong. They think the solution is meditation, or positive thinking, or just relaxing more. Bull. Those might help a little, but they don't address the root cause. Your mind keeps racing because you're holding on to beliefs, and I mean specific, identifiable beliefs that are irrational. And when you hold irrational beliefs, your brain goes into overdrive, trying to protect you from threats that don't exist. The difference between someone with a peaceful mind and someone whose thoughts never stop isn't genetics or luck. It's this. One person has learned to identify and challenge their irrational beliefs. The other keeps feeding them. I'm going to show you the difference, and I'm going to give you a practical system, what I call the ABC model, that you can use today. Right now, this minute, we're going to cover why your brain latches onto certain thoughts and won't let go, what the 3 types of irrational beliefs are that create 99% of mental noise, how to spot these beliefs in real time, and the exact questions to ask yourself to shut down the racing thoughts before they spiral. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about debugging the software you're running. So let's start with the basics. Your mind's primary job is threat detection, not happiness. It evolved to keep you alive, not peaceful. The racing thoughts are your brain doing what it thinks is its job, scanning for danger, preparing for worst-case scenarios, try to solve problems before they happen. But here's the issue. Your primitive brain can't tell the difference between a lion chasing you and your boss giving you a weird look. It treats both as survival threats. Your brain has a built-in negativity bias. It remembers negative experiences more vividly than positive ones because, evolutionarily, forgetting where the tiger lives could kill you. Forgetting where the nice berries were just means you're hungry. So your mind naturally gravitates toward problems, threats, and what could go wrong. This isn't a bug in you. It's a feature of human brains. You're not broken. You're just running ancient software in a modern world. When you replay conversations or worry about the future, your brain thinks it's doing important work. It's trying to solve social problems the same way it would solve physical survival problems. But social problems don't have the same clear solutions. You can't outrun a difficult conversation or hide from an uncertain future. So your brain just keeps running scenarios, hoping to find the answer. Except there isn't one single answer, and your brain doesn't know when to stop. Every thought creates a neural pathway. The more you think a thought, the stronger that pathway becomes. It's like walking through a forest. The first time is hard, but after you've walked the same path 100 times, there's a clear trail. Your repetitive thoughts have carved superhighways in your brain. That's why the same worries pop up automatically. You've trained your brain to go there. You didn't mean to, but you did. Most people try to stop racing thoughts by distracting themselves. TV, scrolling, keeping busy. But distraction is temporary. The moment you're alone with your thoughts again, the factory starts up. Why? Because you haven't addressed the underlying beliefs driving the thoughts. You're treating symptoms, not causes. Imagine you have a smoke detector in your house that's too sensitive. It goes off when you make toast. Now, you could disconnect the battery. That's distraction. You could yell at it. That's positive thinking. Or you could recalibrate it so it only goes off for actual fires. That's what we're going to do with your mind. So now you understand why your mind races. It's doing exactly what evolution programmed it to do. But here's where it gets interesting. Your mind isn't just randomly generating thoughts. It's following a very specific pattern. And once you see this pattern, everything changes. This is the breakthrough that changed everything in my work. Most people think their emotions come from events. I'm upset because my partner criticized me. I'm anxious because I have a presentation tomorrow. But that's not how it actually works. There's a hidden step between the event and your emotional reaction. I call it the ABC model. A is the activating event. B is your belief about the event. And C is the emotional and behavioral consequence. Let me break this down because this is crucial. A, the activating event, is just the objective facts. Your boss didn't smile when you passed in the hall. Your text wasn't answered for 3 hours. You have to give a presentation next week. Notice these are neutral facts. They have no inherent meaning until you add interpretation. Most people skip right over this and think the event is the problem. It's not. B, your beliefs. This is where the magic and the misery happens. Between the event and your emotional reaction, you tell yourself a story. You interpret. You assign meaning. My boss didn't smile, which means she's angry with me, which means I'm about to be fired, which means my career is over. See how you went from a neutral event to catastrophe? That's all happening in your belief system. And here's the key. These beliefs usually happen so fast you don't even notice them. They're automatic. See, the consequences, this is what you feel and do. Anxiety, anger, depression, obsessive thinking, avoiding situations, lashing out. These consequences aren't coming from the event at A. They're coming from your beliefs at B. Same event, different belief, completely different emotional consequence. That's why two people can experience the exact same situation and have totally opposite reactions. Here's why this model is revolutionary. You usually can't control events happen. People do things. Life is unpredictable, and you can't directly control C. You can't just decide to not feel anxious. But B, your beliefs, those you can identify, examine, and change. That's where your power is. That's the control panel for your emotional life. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people are stuck in traffic. Person one thinks, "This is terrible. I can't stand this. Everyone's an idiot. My whole day is ruined." They're furious, heart racing, honking. Person two thinks, "This is inconvenient, but I'll use the time to listen to a podcast." They're calm, maybe even enjoying the break. Same traffic jam, different beliefs, completely different emotional experiences. The traffic didn't make person one angry. Their beliefs about the traffic did. I had a client once, successful executive, who would spiral into panic attacks before presentations. When we broke it down with ABC, the activating event was simply presentation scheduled. His beliefs were, I must perform perfectly. If I make a mistake, everyone will think I'm incompetent. I can't handle being judged negatively. The consequences were panic, sleepless nights, racing thoughts. We didn't change the presentations. Those were part of his job. We changed the beliefs, and the panic attacks stopped. Okay, so you're starting to see that your beliefs create your emotional reactions. But not all beliefs are created equal. There are 3 specific types of irrational beliefs that cause almost all mental suffering. And once you can spot these in your own thinking, you've basically got a roadmap to inner peace. After working with thousands of people, I discovered that almost every case of anxiety, depression, and racing thoughts comes down to 3 core irrational beliefs. I call them demandingness, awfulizing, and I can't stand this. Funny names, serious impact. These are the software bugs I mentioned earlier, and you're probably running at least one of them right now. Demandingness is when you turn preferences into absolute demands. Instead of "I'd prefer to do well at work," you tell yourself, "I must succeed perfectly or I'm worthless." Instead of "I'd like people to like me," you demand people must approve of me. You take a reasonable desire and make it a rigid requirement for your happiness or self-worth. The word to listen for is must, should, have to, need to. Every time you use these about things outside your direct control, you're setting yourself up for mental torture. Why? Because life doesn't care about your musts. Things won't always go your way. People won't always behave how you want. And when reality doesn't match your demands, your mind goes into crisis mode. It thinks you're facing a survival threat because you've told it this thing must happen or else. Awfulizing is where you take something bad and escalate it to the end of the world. Someone doesn't text you back, and you jump to "they hate me. I'm going to be alone forever. I'm unlovable." You make a mistake at work, and suddenly I'm going to get fired, lose my house, end up homeless. You take a real problem and multiply it by 1,000 in your mind. The key word here is awful, terrible, catastrophic, the worst thing ever. But here's the reality check. Most things aren't awful. They're inconvenient, disappointing, challenging, painful even. But awful? That's your brain adding dramatic interpretation. Awful should be reserved for truly horrific things. War, famine, natural disasters. Not someone forgetting your birthday or your internet going out. I can't stand it-itis is when you tell yourself you can't bear something uncomfortable. I can't stand being criticized. I can't handle feeling anxious. I can't deal with uncertainty. But here's the truth. If you're alive and thinking these thoughts, you are standing it. You're handling it. It's uncomfortable, yes. But you're not going to die from discomfort. You're not going to shatter into pieces. This belief makes you avoid everything difficult, which means your world keeps getting smaller and smaller. And every time you avoid something, you reinforce the belief that you can't handle it. It's a vicious cycle. You avoid public speaking because you can't stand the anxiety. By avoiding it, you never learn that you can actually survive the anxiety. So the belief gets stronger. Here's where it gets nasty. These three often team up. You demand something, I must not fail this test. Then you awfulize, if I fail, it will be terrible. My future is ruined. Then you add, I can't stand it. I can't handle that kind of pressure. Now you're in a full mental spiral. Your mind races trying to prevent this imagined catastrophe that you've told yourself you can't survive. See how this works? You've created your own mental prison. Think of preferences like a thermostat with a range. I prefer 70 degrees, but 65 to 75 is fine. That's flexible. Demanding this is like setting it to exactly 70 and having an emotional breakdown if it's 69 or 71. You've eliminated all tolerance for normal variation. Life has natural variation. When you demand it doesn't, you suffer constantly. I worked with a guy who couldn't sleep because of work thoughts. We identified his beliefs. I must never make mistakes. That's demandingness. If I mess up, it will be awful and everyone will lose respect for me. That's awfulizing. I can't stand the anxiety of possibly failing. That's I can't stand it-itis. His mind raced all night trying to prevent these imagined disasters. Once he changed these beliefs to I prefer to do well, but mistakes are part of being human. If I mess up, it's disappointing but not the end of the world. I don't like anxiety, but I can definitely handle it. His mind finally shut off. Same job, same responsibilities, totally different mental experience. All right, so now you can recognize these irrational beliefs. But here's what you really want to know. How do you actually change them? How do you stop these patterns once they start? That's what I'm going to show you next. This is the practical part, the technique you can use today. Once you identify an irrational belief, you don't just accept it and move on. You actively dispute it. You challenge it like a lawyer cross-examining a witness. Most people have never questioned their own thoughts. They just believe them automatically. But thoughts aren't facts. Beliefs aren't reality. They're interpretations. And if they're creating misery, they need to be examined. I'm going to give you the exact questions I use to dismantle irrational beliefs. When you catch yourself in a belief like I must be perfect or this is awful, ask, where's the evidence for this? What proves that I must be perfect? What law of the universe says I can't make mistakes? You'll find there isn't any evidence. It's just a rule you made up. Similarly, when you say something is awful, ask compared to what? Is this actually the worst thing that could happen? Is it worse than war, disease, natural disaster? This isn't about minimizing real pain. It's about getting perspective. Most things we call awful are actually just inconvenient or disappointing. Let's take I can't stand being criticized. Really? You've been criticized before and you're still here. You stood it. So logically, the statement is false. Or if people don't like me, I'm worthless. Does that make logical sense? Your worth as a person depends on others' opinions, so you have no inherent value? That's illogical. You're letting other people, who have their own biases and issues, determine your fundamental worth. When you examine these beliefs logically, they fall apart. Even if you can't fully let go of a belief yet, ask, is this belief useful? Is demanding perfection making me perform better? Or is it paralyzing me with anxiety? Is awfulizing about the future helping me prepare? Or is it just making me miserable now? Often, we hold on to beliefs because we think they're protecting us or motivating us. But when you honestly assess their impact, you see they're causing harm, not benefit. For every irrational belief, there's a rational alternative. Instead of "I must succeed," try "I prefer to succeed, and I'll work toward it, but my worth doesn't depend on it." Instead of "Criticism is awful," try "Criticism is uncomfortable, but it's also feedback I can learn from." Instead of "I can't stand anxiety," try "I don't enjoy anxiety, but I've handled it before and I can handle it now." These alternatives aren't just positive thinking. They're more accurate descriptions of reality. That's what makes them powerful. You're not lying to yourself. You're telling yourself the truth instead of catastrophic fiction. I developed a specific technique called DIBS, disputing irrational beliefs. Here's how it works. When you notice an irrational belief, write it down. Then ask yourself these questions and write the answers. What's the irrational belief? What evidence supports it? There usually isn't any. What evidence contradicts it? Usually plenty. What's the worst that could really happen? Can I survive that? What would be a more rational belief? Then practice repeating the rational belief daily, out loud if possible. Your brain learns through repetition. You created these irrational pathways through repetition. You can create new, rational ones the same way. Imagine your irrational belief is on trial. You're the prosecutor trying to prove it's true, but you're also the defense attorney trying to prove it's false. And you're the judge evaluating the evidence. Most of the time, when you actually examine the evidence, the irrational belief has no case. It's all fear and assumption, no facts. Let's work through a real one. Racing thought. I can't stop thinking about that stupid thing I said at the meeting. Everyone thinks I'm an idiot now. Okay, dispute it. Evidence? None. You have no idea what everyone thinks. You're not a mind reader. Logic? Even if someone did think less of you for one comment, does that make you an idiot? No. Useful? Is ruminating about it changing anything? No. It's just making you miserable. Alternative belief. I said something awkward. It happens. Most people probably forgot already. If they didn't, oh well, I'm human. Which belief gives you peace? The rational one. Every time. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds good in theory, but my mind moves too fast. By the time I notice the thought, I'm already spiraling. Fair point. That's why you need what I call thought interrupters. Quick techniques to catch thoughts in real time before they snowball. The ABC model and disputation work great when you have time to reflect. But what about when you're in the moment? Lying in bed at 2 in the morning, sitting in a stressful meeting, or spiraling after a difficult conversation? You need quick intervention techniques. These are tools I've taught clients to use in real time to interrupt the racing thoughts before they take over. As soon as you notice your mind racing, pause and name what you're doing. Out loud if possible. I'm demanding this right now. I'm awfulizing. I'm telling myself I can't stand this. Just naming it creates distance. Instead of being lost in the thought, you're observing it. This simple act, identifying the pattern, interrupts the automatic spiral. It's like pressing pause on a video. The thought doesn't have the same power once you've labeled it. When your mind is racing about the past or future, bring yourself back to the present moment. Ask what's actually happening right now, not in my imagination. Right now. Usually, right now, you're safe. You're okay. The catastrophe is in your mind, not in reality. This isn't toxic positivity. It's distinguishing between real, present threats and imagined future ones. Your body can't tell the difference, but your conscious mind can. When you catch yourself awfulizing, use a scale. Okay, on a scale where 1 is a minor inconvenience and 10 is actual death or permanent severe harm, where is this situation? Honestly, most things we freak out about are 2s or 3s that we're treating like 9s or 10s. A critical email? Maybe a 3. An awkward social moment? Maybe a 2. Getting fired will be like a 6 or 7. Hard, but not the end of your life. This creates instant perspective. For future-focused anxiety, play out the scenario. Okay, let's say the worst happens. And then what? Keep going. I give a bad presentation. And then what? People judge me. And then what? I feel embarrassed for a while. And then what? Life goes on. Usually, when you actually follow the thought to its conclusion, you realize you'd survive. You'd cope. It wouldn't destroy you. This deflates the catastrophe. Some of my clients wear a rubber band on their wrist. When they catch a racing, irrational thought, they snap it gently. It's a physical interrupt, a pattern break. It says, stop, this is that thought pattern again. Then they replace it with a rational alternative. Some people use a specific word. Stop. Nope. There is again. The specific technique matters less than the interrupt itself. Your racing thoughts are like a train picking up speed. If you catch them early, when the train's just starting to move, you can stop them easily. But if you let them build momentum, they're much harder to stop. These techniques are about catching thoughts early when they're still manageable. Here's how this works in real life. You send a text to a friend. They don't respond for hours. Your mind starts. They're mad at me. I did something wrong. They don't want to be friends anymore. Okay, pause. Name it. I'm awfulizing and mind reading. Reality check. What's actually happening? I sent a text and haven't gotten a response yet. That's it. Scale it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this? Maybe a 1? People get busy. And then what? Even if they're upset, we'd talk about it, work it out, or worst case, drift apart. I'd survive. See how quickly that deflates the spiral? Okay, so you've got the awareness tools, the disputation questions, the real-time techniques. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Your mind doesn't race in a vacuum. There are specific life situations that trigger these patterns more than others. Let's talk about the common triggers and how to prepare for them. Your mind doesn't race randomly. There are predictable situations that activate your irrational beliefs and send your thoughts into overdrive. If you know what your triggers are, you can prepare for them. You can catch the beliefs before they spiral. The most common triggers fall into a few categories, and chances are you'll recognize yourself in at least one of them. Humans hate uncertainty. We want to know what's going to happen. When we don't, our minds try to fill in the blanks, usually with worst-case scenarios. Waiting for medical test results, job interview outcomes, relationship conversations that need to happen. These are racing thought factories. The irrational belief underneath is usually, I must know what's going to happen, and I can't stand not knowing. But reality? Life is uncertain. You'll never have complete control or information. The rational alternative, I prefer to know, but I can handle uncertainty. I've done it before. I've lived my entire life in uncertainty about the future, and I'm still here. Presentations, tests, competitions, first dates, job reviews. Anytime you're being evaluated, the racing thoughts kick in. Why? Because you're probably holding demanding disbeliefs. I must perform perfectly. I must impress these people. I can't make mistakes. Plus, awfulizing. If I fail, it will be terrible. The rational alternative, I prefer to do well, and I'll prepare, but my worth doesn't depend on one performance. Even if it goes poorly, I'll survive and learn. Not being included, being criticized, having difficult conversations, sensing someone's disapproval. These trigger massive thought spirals. The belief, I must be liked and approved of by everyone, or conflict is awful, I can't stand it. This leads to replaying conversations, obsessing over what people think, imagining confrontations. Rational alternative, I prefer to get along with people, but not everyone will like me, and that's okay. Conflict is uncomfortable, but it's part of human relationships, and I can handle it. You will have conflict in your life. You will be criticized. You will be rejected sometimes. That's not awful. That's being human. Replaying that embarrassing moment from 3 years ago, ruminating on things you wish you'd said or done differently. This is your mind trying to fix something that's already happened. The irrational belief, I should have done better. This mistake is unforgivable. I can't stand having made this error. Rational alternative, I'm human. I made a mistake. I can learn from it, but beating myself up doesn't change the past. I can forgive myself and move forward. Knowing your triggers is like having a fire drill. You know where the exits are before the smoke starts. When you enter an uncertain situation, you can tell yourself in advance, okay, I know my mind will try to fill in blanks with catastrophe. That's just what it does. I'm prepared for that. This pre-awareness cuts the racing thoughts in half. Make a list of your top 3 triggers. For each one, write down the irrational belief that usually shows up in a prepared rational response. Then, When you face that trigger, you're not starting from scratch. You've already done the work. For example, if uncertainty is your trigger, your prepared response might be, I don't know what will happen, and that's uncomfortable, but I've handled uncertainty my whole life. I'll cope with whatever comes. Having this ready, written down, practiced, that's your mental armor. So there you have it. You now understand why your mind races, what beliefs drive it, how to challenge those beliefs, and how to catch yourself in real time. But here's what I want you to really understand as we wrap up. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming aware. Let me bring this all together for you. Your mind doesn't race because you're broken or weak or damaged. It races because you're human. You have a brain designed to protect you, and you've trained it unintentionally to treat normal life situations as emergencies. You've been running irrational beliefs that create constant mental noise. But now you know different. You understand the ABC model, that it's not events themselves, but your beliefs about events that create your emotional reactions. You can identify the three big irrational beliefs: demandingness, awfulizing, and I can't stand it. You have the disputation questions to challenge these beliefs. You have real-time techniques to catch spirals before they take over. And you know your triggers so you can prepare in advance. This is practical stuff, not theory, not wishful thinking. This is a system I've used with thousands of people, and it works. But, and this is important, it works if you actually use it. Knowledge alone doesn't change anything. You have to practice. You have to catch yourself in the moment and actively dispute those irrational thoughts. The first few times will feel awkward. That's normal. You're building new neural pathways, and that takes repetition. You didn't learn to ride a bike by watching a video about it. You got on the bike and fell a bunch of times. This is the same. You'll catch some thoughts and miss others. You'll dispute beliefs successfully sometimes and get swept away other times. That's fine. You're learning. Here's my challenge to you. For the next week, carry around a small notepad or use your phone. Every time you notice your mind racing, stop and write down the ABC. What was the activating event? What belief did you tell yourself? What was the emotional consequence? Then dispute that belief with the questions I gave you. Do this every single day for a week, and you will notice a difference. Your mind can quiet down. You can experience peace. You can go to bed without replaying the day. You can face challenges without catastrophizing. It's absolutely possible. And it starts with seeing your thoughts for what they are. Just thoughts, not facts. Beliefs you can question and change. You're not at the mercy of your mind. Your mind is a tool, and you can learn to use it properly. Stop treating your thoughts like absolute truth. Start treating them like hypotheses to be tested. Most of them will fail the test. And when they do, you let them go and replace them with something more rational. Now, we've covered how to handle racing thoughts and quiet your mind. But there's another side to this coin that's equally important. What do you do when you're not just thinking too much, but you're completely stuck? When you know what you should do, but you can't seem to take action. That paralysis has a specific cause too, and it's probably not what you think. In my next video, I'm breaking down the real reason people procrastinate and stay stuck, and it has nothing to do with laziness or a lack of discipline. If you've ever wondered why you sabotage yourself or avoid things you know would help you, you need to watch that. I'm going to show you the hidden belief system that creates paralysis and exactly how to break it. Click on that video right now. Don't wait. Your future self will thank you.